Greetings, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. I'm John Huber. I will be your fill-in president here today. Before we get started, does anybody have any new business to discuss?
How about the pledge?
Why don't we start with the pledge? Channing, will you lead us?
Hand over heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America. Move on.
Now, does anybody have any new business to discuss?
Well, you
Carrie.
we do need to do the officer installation. Typically, that would be done by the outgoing president would conduct that. I don't know if Eric will be here the next couple of weeks. I won't be here next week, but we need to try to do it at a time when the officers, the majority of the officers will be here. So I don't know if we want to plan that sometime in the next couple of weeks after.
Great, thank you. Maybe we could shoot Eric an email and say, how about next week, how about the following, something like that.
So maybe we could plan for the following week, which is the 25th, I think.
Yeah, the last Thursday in the month.
Right. So if we just maybe just put it on the calendar.
Okay, great, let's do that. Anybody else have anything before we get started here today? Well, if not, I will call on our Toastmaster, who is kind of our MC of the meeting. Our Toastmaster today is Gina Van Heel. Gina has rapidly become a star of this club, and we really appreciate everything that she does. Welcome, Gina Van Heel.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. It is going to be a fun day, I hope. Can we read the mission statement?
We provide
A supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communications and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Hooah!
Thank you. So as you guys can see, the theme of the day was Flag Day. And the reason I picked that is because my birthday is actually always on Flag Day. And that will be Sunday. The other day, it's kind of my old joke, everybody's sick of hearing it, is I always tell everybody, yeah, I am so important that people hang their flags out for me. When I mentioned that to someone this year, they said, have you noticed that a lot of people don't hang flags anymore? Have you noticed how the numbers have dwindled down? I started thinking about it, and I really don't see as many flags as I used to. Then I was on Facebook the other day, and I actually saw a bunch of people throwing the flag on the ground and stomping on it. So I was kind of blown away. Thank you. I thought today we should learn more about the flag etiquette. Did you know that you can hang your flag every day, all day long, from sunrise to sunset, but the U.S. flag code says you should hang it on New Year's Day, Inauguration Day, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, Lincoln's birthday, Washington's birthday, Easter Sunday, Mother's Day, Armed Forces Day, Memorial Day, Flag Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Patriots Day, Constitution Day, Columbus Day, Navy Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Christmas Day. I didn't even know there were some of those days. Okay, so now that we've started, I was trying to think, do I get in for okays too? Now that we've got started, we will get started on our meeting. So John, can we have our joke, please?
I'm sure you've heard this one before, but I'm going to tell it again. The minister was up giving the Sunday Mass, and he noticed that one of the parishioners right in the front row had fallen asleep. So he signaled to the rest of the congregation and pointed out this gentleman. It was Channing, of course. And he decided to have a little fun with the lad. He said, all those wishing to go to heaven, rise now. Of course, everybody rose except for Channing in the front row. He motioned everybody back down. He said, now those wishing to go to hell, rise now. And he took his Bible and went. Channing popped up, looked at everybody, they were all sitting, looked at the minister and said, Sir, I don't know what we're voting on, but it looks like you and I are the only ones for it.
Excellent. The next thing we're going to do is have Rich stand up and tell us what the word of the day is. Oh, yeah, we switched it over, sorry.
The word of the day today is ritual. And in your introductions, if you guys would be more than willing to try and use that as often as you can today, that would be great.
Okay, and a ritual is a solemn ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order. So our like our officer's installation, it's going to have an order that we need to go in. If you will, please use that word and stand up, introduce yourself, and just use the word. I'm not even going to have you say anything else today. Channing, why don't you start?
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. Flag Day. There's a ritual in honoring the flag when it comes to military affairs, funerals, all sorts of things. And we cannot forget that Flag Day is also an honor to Regina. Very good.
I'm John Huber, work at D.A. Davidson. I love our little rituals that we do at Toastmasters. It's always fun to be here. I brought a guest today. I'll let him introduce himself, but Flag Day. I will always think of you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is James Jandro. I work for BNSF Railroad. Known John for a while. Ritual in our baseball. I coach baseball. We always have a ritual before the games where we always say, you know, let's go Cobras. So there you go, ritual.
Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My name is Susan Wilson. Today for our meeting, I'm going to be an evaluator of one of the prepared speeches. Flag Day. I take the flag for granted. You see it hanging all the time. I don't really pay attention to it. I think it's very nice that we have a day to honor the flag and to remind us again what it stands for. As for a ritual, Dan asked me what I do in the summer, and my ritual is to lay in the sun. That's all I do.
Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My name is Dan Peterson. Today I'm going to be the timer. We time the speeches and the evaluations and table topics. The green light means they qualified. The yellow light gives them warning that they're getting close, and the red light is they better wrap it up. I too don't do much with Flag Day. I don't think I put it out. I do have a flag. I just thought you put that out on the 4th of July. I will develop a new ritual, and I will put the flag out on Gina's birthday.
Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, I am Sue Bridgeford. I will be speaker 1 today. I'd like to share a ritual we had. I helped the realtors in the, what's their names are up there on the hill, sorry. We would total for the flag. That was our ritual. That's how we got that big flag up on the hill. So we would stand out in the middle of 10th Avenue South asking for money, and that's how we funded that for the very first few years of the flag, and then they wouldn't let us toll for the flag anymore. But it used to be a fun ritual.
I'm Dakota Norman. I'm in Rich's class, the Communications 101. I'm a junior. For Flag Day, though, being from Oregon, Salem, Oregon, Flag Day is kind of big in my small town, so we celebrate it pretty big there.
Hello, Toastmasters and honored guests. My name is Gail Harris. I'm from out Fairfield on a ranch. I am Table Topics Master today, so I will be calling on some of you for a quick speech on your feet from 2 to 3 minutes. Or one. You have to go at least 1 minute. I decided when I came into town, driving into town just a little bit ago, I thought, I'm going to count the flags that are up. And I actually counted 7. But it was so, I just love that big flag on the hill. It means so much to be able to come into Great Falls and see that big flag flying in the breeze. And I think it's a great ritual on Toastmasters to have the Pledge of Allegiance. And I remember growing as a school kid, in school, every morning we said the pledge. And I don't know if they still do that, but I think that's an important thing to do, that we lose sight of what that really means to America.
Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters. I am Desiree Kutzler, and I wanted to welcome everybody to our ritual Thursday lunch meetings. Today I will be your WAG. I am looking for ahs, ums, so's, and proper use of English language, and I will be ringing the bells with any misuse of the language.
Hello Toastmasters and welcome guests. My name is Carrie Ardenway. I'm an agent with Hub International. Today I'm acting as your general evaluator while I will conduct evaluation portion, and I have a team of helpers that will facilitate that portion of the meeting. I've been attending the base meeting on Wednesdays regularly, and I get a little bit emotional. I don't know, when we see the flags and all that patriotism up there. I don't know, for some reason, every time that I go on base and the salutes to the different sergeants, it definitely reminds me of how happy I am to be in America. As far as rituals, my summer ritual started about 5 years ago, where I got my first professional pedicure when summer first hit so that I could wear sandals. I didn't do it this year. I had to paint my own toenails and I haven't gone yet. So I'm hoping to get that back in.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. My name is Samantha Strable, and I'm an English major at UGF and a student of Dr. Rich. I found it really cool to see the flag, how we even talk about the flag and all the days that it was supposed to be up, because I didn't know that you should have a flag up for those, and how it should be a ritual that we don't really use.
Hi, I'm Rich Briner. I teach over at the University of Great Falls. And it seems like it is a ritual that sometimes, and I'm happy to be called upon to do a pocket speech. And the ritual of a pocket speech, just so that you know, is you show up 10 minutes early. The Toastmaster says, we're missing a speaker. And you say, yes, I would like to do that. And then you pretend like you know what you're doing, and then you get little feedback sheets from everybody. And they're usually pretty good because they think that you've never given the speech before. But we all know that's not true. And that's the ritual of today. However, this is a new speech. You have not heard this. Oh.
Okay, I'm going to add one more thing that's a little out of the ordinary. I did bring cupcakes today. They are it's called Carolyn's Cupcakes, and she makes them out of her home. They are stuffed, they are delicious, they are So there is lemon drop and strawberry shortcake. So you guys can all take a cupcake before you leave today. Our next section is our prepared speeches, or semi-prepared speeches. What we do is the evaluator tells us what we will be looking for, and then the speaker will come up and give the speech. Our first evaluator is Susan Wilson. She is going to be telling us what she is going to be looking for in Sue Bridgeford's speech.
Yes, today I have the great pleasure to evaluate Sue's speech. She's speaking out of an advanced manual. It's called Humorously Speaking. She's on her second project, and the project is titled Lead Them with a Smile. Today, Sue is to give us a speech that starts with a funny story and ends with a funny story. One of the things this does is it leaves your audience remembering you. It lets you reaffirm your message. It signals to the audience that you are done, and it lets you exit with flair. I think we should all strive to exit with flair. Today, Sue Bridgeford, 5 to 7 minutes.
Sue has been a Toastmaster for a few years now. She is working on her Advanced Communicator Silver. Inspiration for speeches comes in funny ways. The inspiration for this speech actually came from last week's meeting. She can't remember what was said, but it brought some sort of an idea to her head. Sue Bridgeford, uniforms, uniforms, Sue Bridgeford.
Before I start, I want to say Air National Guard. It was the realtors in the Air National Guard that helped with the flag. I was like, I can't remember their name. I'm so sorry. Fellow Toastmasters. When my son was 10 years old, we went to a Dodger game. It was Boy Scout night. So he had on his Boy Scout uniform. We were the only one there for his troop, so we were sitting kind of by ourselves. And one of my friends showed up. She had her little girl with her, and there were some other people with them. So we sat there talking and watching the game. Finally, my son kind of nudges me and he goes, Mom, that little girl keeps staring at me. And so I look over, and here's Paige. She's 5, and she's just staring at Zach with those big brown eyes. And Barb and I are kind of looking at her, and we realize she is now swooning over my son because of his uniform. Don't we all swoon a little over uniforms? Didn't we all swoon a little bit on, Top Gun, Officer and Gentleman? But what about Uncle Bill? What about Grandpa Joe? They all wore those uniforms with pride. And didn't they instill in us a little pride and awe when we saw them in their uniforms? The definition of a uniform is a designated clothing to be worn by members of an organization or body. Another Boy Scout story. When I was president of the Uptown Optimist Club, we are the charter member for Act 143. We were asked to come to their annual dinner. And at the annual dinner, Sheriff Bob Edwards was there in complete uniform. And he was there to talk to the boys. When it got to be his turn to talk to the boys, he brought all the boys on stage, turned his back on us, and talked to the boys. What he was there to convey is that he had heard that some of these boys were bullied at school when they wore their uniforms to school. Bob Edwards was there to say, I wear this uniform, and I wear this uniform every day. I wear it with pride, and you should wear your uniform with pride. You have been chosen by this organization to wear that uniform. Don't let anybody bully you or make fun of you because they haven't been asked to wear that uniform. Wear those uniforms with pride. I think you should wear any uniform with pride. You work at McDonald's, you should wear that uniform with pride. I keep going on the Boy Scout story, so I'll try to tell another story. But you should always wear any uniform you should wear with pride. When Zach was 6 years old, we went to the fire station. Fire station, the older guys, I know they had given it to the rookie because he didn't know what he's in for. He's got 3 little 6-year-old boys, and they're going to have to ask him every question there is about fire, trucks, whatever. And they did. They lambasted this poor guy. He had more questions, and you could just see him, he'd just kind of look at his parents, and we're all just like, that's why we're here. But at the end, he put on all of his gear, even with the little Darth Vader sounding thing when they were talking. And he's got all the gear on, and those 3 little boys are staring at him. He goes, if you see me in a fire, what are you going to do? Oh, we're going to run away. We're afraid. He goes, oh no, you run to me. You run to me. Because I am going to protect you. This uniform is I'm going to protect you. I'm going to get you out of here safe. You run to me. You don't ever run away from any man in this uniform. And that stuck with those boys. Uniforms can instill pride, faith, even a little fear. I think whenever we all see those little red lights behind us, we all might well panic a little bit. But if you were in trouble, wouldn't you want to see those red lights? Wouldn't you want to see those men in uniform? When I was in high school, I worked for P.D. Thunderbird. P.D. Thunderbird, now it became Olson's. Way back then, I was in high school, and they came up with the great idea that we should wear uniforms. I wore my little red pantsuit and white shirt with great pride because I had been asked by that organization to wear that uniform, and I wore it with pride. But you know the best thing about wearing a uniform? You never have to worry about what you're going to wear.
Great job. Okay, our next speaker, well, our next evaluator is John. Boy, we're changing people.
I'm going to evaluate Rich's speech today. Rich is working in the Advanced Storytelling Manual, and the presentation title is called Make It Personal. He is to tell personal stories that evoke emotion. He is to use anecdotes that really happened to him. Each story should have a plot, a conflict, and a character that changes. And his time will be 5 to 7.
Thanks, John. Okay, Rich is our next speaker. In honor of Flag Day, Rich is here to tell us a couple of stories about his service in the United States Army during the Vietnam era. Speaking on The Reluctant Patriot, Rich Briner. Rich Briner, The Reluctant Patriot.
On April 27th, 1967, I was 21 years old, and I was drafted into the United States Army. I was drafted because I had dropped out of college, I was sick of school, and I didn't realize that the status would be going from 2S to 1A. 1A meant you are draft bait and they are going to take you soon. And they did on that very day, the same day that a man named Cassius Clay was supposed to be drafted. He was drafted and he, well, 3 years later, he was still in the courts trying to fight for why he should be treated differently because he's a conscientious objector and a preacher. And he won that Supreme Court case, even though he was stripped 3 years during his title years. But that's another story. I'm just famous for the same day that Cassius Clay, otherwise known as Muhammad Ali, was drafted. When I was in basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey, basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia, because I had had 2.5 years of ROTC in college, they asked this question. The sergeant said, "Anybody here have any prior military experience?" 2 guys raised their hand. 1 other guy and me. I didn't realize that when you raise your hand in the military, look out. Good things never happen to you. He asked the other guy, "How many years do you have?" 2 years. He said, "How about you?" I said, 2.5. He said, "Come on up here, boy." So I came up to the front of the platoon of 30 people. He gave me this little E6 stripes, temporary stripes, and I put it on my sleeve. That following Saturday, we were supposed to be first in the chow line because the sergeant on Friday said, "Anybody who goes through any platoon out of the 3 of you that goes through the quickest will get to be in the chow line first on Saturday and Sunday." Now this might not seem like a big deal to you, but to us in basic training it was a big deal. Lots of food, not picked over, great stuff. So we get in line Saturday morning. We were first to win, so we were entitled to be there, but somehow the 2 other platoons got in line ahead of us. And I'm standing way in the back there next to people from my platoon, and one guy's elbowed me and says, "Hey, you're the platoon leader. Get up there and tell them there's a mistake here." Yeah, okay. So I walked up to the front of the line, and there was a sergeant there, a new sergeant, a weekend sergeant. And I said the magic words, "Sergeant Major, there seems to be a mistake here." "What? What did you say, boy?" I said, "There seems to be a mistake here." He says, "You sorry ass, you drop and give me 20. So I dropped and I did 20 push-ups. And I got back up. And he said, "Now, what's your problem?" I said, "Sir, there seems to be a mistake here." He says, "Drop it. Sorry ass, you don't learn. Give me 20. So I did 20 more. And I stood up, and he said, "Now, what's your problem, sir?" I said, "Nothing at all." I went back to the end of the line. 2 days later, they took my stripes off, and they gave it to the guy who had 2 years experience. He lasted about 3 weeks. I had no idea that they shifted this thing around, and so that was my reluctant patriotism serving as a temporary platoon sergeant. When by misfortune, I got infected, my foot got infected, and the Achilles tendon got infected in about the 4th week of basic training, and it swelled up, so I couldn't even put my combat boot on. And I was sent to the dispensary, and I had to put it up and stay in bed for like 3 or 4 days, during which time my platoon was qualifying on the rifle range. I missed it all. So when I came, I was a week behind everybody. At the end of the 8 weeks of basic training, all of the people were sent to Fort Polk, Louisiana for pre-Vietnam training. Now, I was one of the stragglers, and they didn't know what to do with me, so they sent me to Fort Dix, New Jersey. And from there, I was sent to West Berlin, Germany. This was a year in 1967 when 50,000 GIs were sent to Vietnam. The biggest year that LBJ had sent soldiers to Vietnam. And somehow, I slipped through the cracks and ended up in West Berlin. And somehow, after about 3 or 4 months, I looked out my barracks window and I saw there was a Catholic church right across the street. And so I went over there. I started going over there every Sunday because I heard they had cookies and cake at the end of the Mass, you know, so I'd slither in near the end of the Mass. With the cookies and cake, we got to go back there and eat cookies and cake and see the chaplains and meet the chaplain assistants. And one of them said, "Say, Rich, you're a Catholic boy, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I'm rotating back to the States in about 6 weeks. You should apply for the job as a chaplain's assistant." So I did. And I became a chaplain's assistant to the Berlin Brigade Catholic chaplain. And one of my duties every Sunday was they had a 9:30 Catholic Mass, and then they had a 10:30 Protestant service, and then another noon Catholic Mass. It was in the same sanctuary, the same chapel. Even the Jewish ceremonies were in the same chapel. My job after the 9:30 Catholic Mass was to take a stepladder and go out into the sanctuary, put it up against the back wall, and there was a huge cross there, plain cross. And then in the middle of it, I climb up the stepladder, and there was a crucifix like that with a little hook and eye on it. And my job was to take Jesus off of the cross, climb down, and take him into the sacristy so that the 10:30 Protestant service would have this big plain cross. That was the deal, man. People don't believe me when I say, I took Jesus off the cross. and it became a ritual every Sunday. And so at the end of the 10:30 Mass, I'd walk out again, I'd put the ladder against the wall, climb up, and do the reverse. I'd take the crucifix with Jesus, with the little hook and eye, and I'd go up there and I'd hook it on so that people would sit out there in the audience and see, ah, yes, there's Jesus on the cross. Rich did his job again. He took Jesus off the cross. So these were some of the great jobs that I had as a reluctant patriot serving in the United States Army.
Great job, Rich. Our next portion of Toastmasters is going to be, Gail is going to come up and ask a few people in the audience some questions, and then they will talk for 1 to 2 minutes on that topic. Gail?
The famous Flag Day, I thought of the Star-Spangled Banner, our national anthem. Who knows who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner?
Francis Scott.
Yeah, Francis Scott.
Right.
I got this guy.
Francis Scott Key. Do you know what year it was written?
1814.
Very good, Chan. 1814.
What a kid.
What were you doing?
During the British attack on Fort McHenry. When we think about the lyrics of Star Spangled Banner, oh say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held of the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, or the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming. In table topics, we'd like to involve our guests. Are any guests willing to participate?
Sure.
Okay, Samantha, right?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I will.
Okay.
About the national anthem, though. Can I pick my topic?
No.
No, I asked you your question, you have to answer.
Nice
And
try.
what was your name?
Very nice try.
James.
James,
I
okay,
had a good
James.
one.
I'm going to go ahead and start with one of our members so you can see how it's done. What does the U.S. flag mean to you, Chan?
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. What the flag means to me is it's a great country. The flag goes back a long, long way to the Revolutionary War. There's a myth that Betsy Ross actually did the first flag that's the pre-runner or whatever it is, the one that predated this particular flag. But what the flag really means is if you look at the stripes on the flag, they mean something. If you look at the stars on the flag, they mean something. If you look at the colors on the flag, that all means something. So if you take a moment and look at the flag, it represents everything that this country is about. White is for purity, red is for the blood of our heroes that have fought and died and have been wounded in the wars that give us the opportunity to be here and speak freely. The blue is for the great skies that we have. The stars are for every one of the states that now are a part of this great country. So when you really look at the flag, what it means to me is that I am proud to be an American. I'm proud to live in the United States, and I'm proud to fly the flag, not only on Flag Day, but all those days on Achievement Center. Madam Toastmaster.
And the rocket's red glare, bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave, or the land of the free and the home of the brave? Can you remember when the U.S. flag brought an emotional response from you? And I'd like you to tell us about that experience. Samantha?
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. The flag, just watching different videos, my dad served in the Air Force for many years, and just like what you were reading right there, seeing that the flag was still there during this war, it was almost symbolic that that it held through, and that we are hardy, that we're still here, that it's not a sign of defeat, but a sign of pride and endurance. Something that it would mean and has provoked an emotional response, just seeing veterans coming home to their families, seeing people who fight in wars, seeing the people that sacrifice their life in battles, all that cumulatively strikes an emotion up in me that, I personally haven't served, but for the people that have, it's just, the people that have lost their lives in battle, that it's just so inspiring to be able to look at the flag and see this symbol of everything that people have fought for and served for. And it does provoke definitely an emotion for me, just seeing that. So,
There are actually four different verses to the Star-Spangled Banner, and it was made our national anthem in 1931 by U.S. Congress. We're talking about, as Francis Scott Scott Key was a composer, and he was also a lawyer and a great poet. When we think of the flag, like Gina said, often there's not the respect there that we would like to see among our younger people or others. So I'm asking, what is something that we can do to encourage more respect for the flag? James?
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. What can we do to have more respect for the flag? Well, I think you have to, first of all, you have to have the younger people of today need to know the history of what the flag does mean. I think that starts with the parents. Parents need to, explain, like Artelia said, the meaning of the flag and the stars, the stripes, the colors. That's the first thing. And I think the schools, they don't do the Pledge of Allegiance anymore because that offends people. So maybe we should not, my son goes to Morningside, and I know they don't do it there. But that's where it starts. You have to educate the young people. And I just want to tell you my ritual. When I watched hockey last night, the Chicago Blackhawks, they have the most extraordinary, when they sing the national anthem, this guy has this great voice. Everyone stands the whole time cheering. And it's been done since, I believe, the 40s or 50s. It's amazing. If you ever want to check it out, I'm going to sends chills up your spine. I was turning it up full blast on my TV, and my kid and my wife, I think they appreciate it.
The one ritual I really enjoy at the rodeos is when they open up the certain, I guess you wouldn't call it services, but the rodeo, they always have someone sing the Star Spangled Banner, and that always touches my heart. One of the favorite times of the rodeo, because I don't enjoy watching people get hurt some of the time. So thank you all for your participation.
Excellent. Okay, one other little thing. Maybe you guys all knew this. I did not. Did you know that when you fly a flag upside down, it's an international distress signal? I learned all sorts of things while I was looking up information. Our next section is going to be our evaluation section. And we actually have an evaluator come up and lead this whole section. So Carrie is our general evaluator today.
Evaluation portion, I have a team of helpers that we'll call up, but prior to doing that, I just wanted to have a timer's report on the portions of the speak and table topics first, please, Dan.
Okay, Carrie Sue spoke for 5 minutes and 13 seconds, and Rich spoke for 7 minutes and 24 seconds. Just squeezed it in there. They both qualified. As for table topics, Channing spoke for 1:33, Samantha for 1:08, and James for 1:24.
Okay.
So they all qualify.
Everybody can pass their votes to Dan on the bottom of your ballot. You can vote for the best speaker as well as the best table topics. Pass that to Dan. As he's telling those, we will have Susan come up and evaluate. Susan.
A speech is not just giving information. A speech is how you give the information. And Sue gave a great speech today. She gave us information in a way that was entertaining, in a way that we can understand, in a way, I believe, that she made a connection with all of us, and we will remember what she said to us. How did she do this? First, she started with her presence on the stage. She pushed the lectern away, she stepped out, she took a moment or two to compose herself and look around, and then she started. Sue is great with her body language, but even more than that, Sue has a great face, and she uses her facial expressions when she gives a speech. She smiles, and we all just end up smiling. We can relate to that. Sue also has a great vocabulary. I didn't see her using any notes. Maybe she has some words down here that she wants to, but who says swooning? But when she talked about the little girl swooning, we knew what she meant. That was an emotion. That was a word that touched our emotions. She talked about lambasting. Once again, a word I appreciate, but I don't use every day. She also gave us many visuals in her speech. She uses great word pictures. The fireman as Darth Vader, she talked about. When you use things like that, your mind makes that picture and that stays with you. It's not just words or information anymore. Sue reiterated several times about uniforms, wearing it with pride. That's one of those things when you say something several times in a speech, whether you're closing a section that you're talking about or you use it to open a new section of what you're going to talk about, the audience can follow that. So that was a great way for her to keep her speech tied together, was talking about these uniforms, wearing it with pride. When I first read the title of her speech and it said uniforms, the only uniform I could think of was a nurse. And I don't know why. I was impressed with how many different kinds of uniforms you came up with and tied them all together. She talked about the Boy Scouts, the firefighters, the sheriff, and last but not least, the red pantsuit when she worked at the hardware store. Is that not a great visual that I will take away with me? One suggestion I would have is, as I had mentioned before, you seem to reiterate the wear it with pride. I think maybe if you would have ended your speech that way, you talked about your red pantsuit, and you ended with a humorous way of at least you don't have to worry about what you're going to wear tomorrow. Maybe another tagline about wear it with pride. The manual said that for this kind of speech, she was supposed to exit with flair, and she did.
Good job. We'll move on to our second evaluator. For our second speaker was Rich, and John, you could share your evaluation of Rich's speech.
Thanks, Carrie. Well, congratulations to Rich. Today he gave a true hip pocket speech. We've heard him do a lot of hip pocket speeches in the past, but they always seem very prepared because he's done them in prepared speech settings prior to me, and this one was a true new subject, so congratulations. How did I know that I would be getting a look at Rich's military career and that he would wind up in colorful situations? You know, I think I would have guessed that, but we got to hear it today from Rich in his hip pocket speech. Now, when you have a hip pocket speech, you're not supposed to be prepared, but you can be prepared for a hip pocket speech. And Rich, of course, with all of his experience, is that he chose a subject that was related to the theme. You know, that here we're talking about Flag Day, patriotism, the reluctant patriot in a make it personal speech. So he took that connection and then he personalized it. When you give a hip pocket speech, you have to know your subject. So you probably should take something that you know fairly intimately, like personal experiences. Now, his organization, when you give a hip pocket speech, you don't have a lot of time to prepare the organization of your speech. So what Rich did really well is he picks a subject where there was a timeline. Well, there was here I was out, a young man out of college, 21, get drafted, my first couple weeks in basic training. So the timeline creates the organization. So that really helps the delivery of the speech. And then Rich, in his delivery, of course, he was supposed to give us a lot of stories, and he did that. And of course, Rich's mind works overtime and it's turbocharged. So he was going, fairly rapidly. Whereas normally he has prepared and he knows when to give pause and emphasis. And in this hip pocket speech, if there was a suggestion, is that we were lacking that because it was story after story after story, and very quick. You were speaking very quickly, and it's hard to slow down when you're telling a story because you're remembering it, but you did a good job with it. But I think that would be an area of improvement. Lastly, it's always fun to get a glimpse into someone's life and someone's life in basic training. I think that little did we know that we'd get a glimpse into Rich's military career today, but what a great speech, and very appreciative for you getting up short notice and giving a hip pocket speech from the heart. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, John. And the third member of our evaluation team is our WAG master. Desiree, could you share how we did today on our grammar?
Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters. Well, today I just want to say what a great meeting. You guys used a lot of great language that depicted our country, our flags, and what everything meant to us. Susan, you did a really great job today in your use of vocabulary. Strive for flair. What a very good depicting word, especially with the flag and our nation. There was a lot of you-knows, so's, few chanting. Respect everything about this country. That was really moving, very powering. You had a couple so's in there today. John, you had a couple so's in there, but really great overall vocabulary use. James, you had a few in there.
Yes.
Called out a couple, but welcome and thanks. You did a really great job with your table topics today. Susan, as always, you were great. You had great vocabulary. You depicted Sue's speech wonderfully. Sue, you had a lot of good vocabulary and phrases in your speech today. That was very powerful and moving. Chosen with pride. You showed us that you wore those uniforms and you chose them with pride. That was great, very moving. Lambasted, great vocabulary. You don't hear that one every day. The big brown eyes. Who couldn't just picture the big brown eyes? It's just like the little cat off of Puss in Boots. You could just see those eyeballs. Rich, you have reluctant pride. You slipped through the cracks. You could just see it slipping through the cracks. But overall today, you guys all had very good language. You wore your vocabulary with pride today.
Evaluation portion, I have just a few brief comments as far as how the overall meeting ran as general evaluator. The meeting started out earlier this week because Gina sent out the notice, made sure that all of the team was in line, and preparation is important as part of any meeting. She came to the meeting prepared because she did her homework at the other end. She also had the board in the room ready when I got here, and I was here early. Gina also brought treats. That doesn't happen very often when you're the Toastmaster. She brings treats, so kudos for that. I liked the theme today, being that Flag Day is coming up, as well as Gina's birthday. What I really liked about the theme is how it was incorporated throughout the meeting. The table topics hit on the theme. Rich had it in his speech. It was something that flowed very nicely and was able to be put into all aspects of the meeting. Our speakers, great job on preparation. I think we had a treat today from 2 experienced Toastmasters. So I have to just address how comfortable you seem today. Not that you don't always, but especially today. I just felt that you commanded the stage. Your body language, your eye contact, the way that you worked the whole room was commendable today in your speech, and you just seemed so comfortable up here. Rich, again, you step up when needed. You found a topic that could relate to the theme, and again, delivered a very powerful speech. Our table topics, as I mentioned, follow the theme, which is always good. I very much appreciate that everybody that did not have a duty was called on, as well as the guests were willing to participate and did so very well. Samantha, I just have to tell you, you did a great job on standing up and actually answering the question and restating the question in there. That's difficult for experienced Toastmasters, let alone a guest that comes in, but you did a great job on that. So congratulations on doing that. And Rich is going to give you extra points. Our evaluations are always difficult when we have such good speakers, and which we did today. But we were able, on both evaluations, to address what's done well and still be able to give some suggestions for improvement, because there isn't anybody that doesn't have a little room for improvement. And that's what evaluations are. We can all learn to improve. When we look at the Toastmaster meeting, all 3 parts were run very well, and that all goes back to the preparation of the Toastmaster, because they are the MC of the meeting, making sure prior to as well as the meeting flows nicely. The only suggestion that I have that would improve our meeting is making sure that if you are assigned to a duty, that you either find a replacement on your end or come in and make sure that you're here if you're signed up for the duty, so that we aren't put in a position where somebody has to raise their hand at the last minute. With that, I'll conclude my evaluation.
Okay, so Dan, go ahead, Amy, I said so. Can we have the timers for the evaluations, please?
Yes, you may. Susan Wilson snuck under the wire at 3:29. 1 second left. John had 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Desiree got into the wire, I guess, or whatever, with 2:06. And Carrie had 2:55. They all qualified.
Good. Okay, so if everybody will please choose your evaluators, choose your speakers, make sure you choose your table topics, and get your votes into Dan so he can get those all added up. I wrote down next week's schedule. Yes, Toastmaster next week is Desiree.
I have Eric.
Desiree.
I have me too. I must have done the wrong week. It's not the 18th. That's 18th. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the T is the timer, and the TM is the Toastmaster. Okay.
Who's Toastmaster?
Toastmaster is Desiree. Table topics is Channing. Speaker 1 is Jane. Speaker 2 is Rick Anderson. So maybe. The joke is Rich. The GE will be Mark. WAG, Sue Richford. Evaluator 1, me. Evaluator 2, Carrie.
And I do need a replacement next week. I will not be here. So if somebody would step up as evaluator 2, I will not be here.
Okay, Desiree, you have that. Timer is Eric. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect.
I'll go with the speaker first, Sue Bridgeford. We'll talk about the table topics. Very, very close vote with James. And evaluation, another close one, Susan Wilson.
Okay, excellent job today. I have one quick. Did you guys know that you are not supposed to wear the flag on any clothing? You're not supposed to. You see them all over the place. It says the flag code prohibits wearing Old Glory on an article of clothing or printing its image on anything disposable such as paper plates, napkins, or any other picnic decorations.
Every 4th of July.
Yeah, we are. We're breaking the code every 4th of July. Yes, Channing?
Ask for a correction. Rich is not a joke, he will give the joke.
Give the joke, yes. Sorry. Don't forget to grab a cupcake and lemon drop and strawberry
Shortcake.
shortcake. Thank you. They've got fillings in them, they are excellent. Is there nothing else today? Thank you guests for coming and participating. You were awesome. We always love it when guests come. Can we have comments? Sam, you want to give a comment on how you thought the meeting went?
Sure. Alright. Well, I thought this meeting again went very well. I thought everyone was really well prepared and you did a great job of just speaking on the spot. If I had to come up here and talk for 7 minutes on something I hadn't rehearsed, it wouldn't go so well. Even a minute is a lot. I think everything overall went really great. Suggestions for improvement? I don't know. I should be taking notes and thinking about that beforehand, but I don't know. It all went really smoothly. You guys were prepared for what you do, and you guys all seem to know your duties and jobs well, so I think everyone performed good. Excellent.
Dakota, what do you think?
Do you want me to come up there?
You can just stand up there if you want to.
First off, this was not what I was expecting. I was expecting a huge auditorium with like 100 people. Like I think this is a lot cooler. I like intimate situations and stuff. I don't really have any comments. I mean, that's basically it.
What did you think of today's meeting?
I thought it was great. Rich's speech was awesome. Everyone, I really learned a lot. It was a lot of fun. So, great speakers in here. So, thanks, John, for inviting me, and hopefully I'll be back. So, thanks. Your speech was awesome.
Yes, we would love our guests to come back again. I think today has been great, and I guess that's over.
Very good.
Don't forget your cupcakes.
Yeah.